Discover the heartbeat of Lexington at the Marriott City Center, your premier downtown destination. Let us handle all your meeting needs, whether you're planning a corporate gathering or a special celebration. Our elegant, versatile spaces provide the perfect setting for every moment. Don't forget about our great room bar, a perfect spot to stop in after work or before a game to enjoy handcrafted signature cocktails. You don't need to be a hotel guest. Just relax and unwind, whether you're gearing up for the game or winding down afterward. Lexington Marriott City Center, your ultimate destination to stay, connect, and celebrate. We've got everything you need to make every moment unforgettable. Dusty began his college career right here in Lexington, wedged between two legendary Kentucky quarterbacks. But his journey took him back home to Valdosta State University, where he didn't just play, he dominated. He made history by winning the Harlan Hill Trophy twice as the best player in all of Division II football, an achievement that cemented his place in the Division II College Football Hall of Fame. And just this year, his legacy was further cemented with his induction into the Valdosta High School Hall of Fame. Beyond the trophies, he's a member of our Kentucky K Club, living out his mission every day. He's a UK letter winner through and through, my friend, and a true legend, the one and only Dusty Bonner.
What was it like for you in those formative years? How did you start playing quarterback, and what did that progression look like to where you worked your way up to starting quarterback at Valdosta High, which is one of the top high school football programs?
So when I was growing up, I wanted to be a Valdosta Wildcat. Pick any college team, pick any pro team. I wasn't worried about any of that. I wanted to be a Valdosta Wildcat. And the little boys where I'm from, they want to grow up and play for the high school. And so that was my dream. And I just wanted to play for them. And honestly, I played all the way up into middle school, even into the 8th grade. I played linebacker and I played defensive end. Sometimes I played quarterback and linebacker or defensive end. And I really wanted to be a defensive end. But then my 9th grade year, they moved me back to quarterback. And that was really the start of, okay, I'm going to be a quarterback. And I had a 9th grade team. We played a 9th grade season, and it was awesome. And we had a really good year, went undefeated. They pulled me up to varsity to start doing a little bit of practice. So at the end of your varsity or freshman season, all the freshmen come up and practice with varsity. And you end up being the scout team. We're the scout team for defense, which is terrifying as a quarterback because they're making deals to the line of scrimmage. Hey, you better not try to block me. You better get out of my way. And I had a dude bench press me over his head one time and walk out from underneath me. That's how he tackled me. There were some dudes. Before we moved up at the end of the year, I got to go up and practice a little bit. I got some action in a varsity game. They stuck me in, and we were playing a team out of Pennsylvania that was like an all-boys school for young men that were in trouble. It was like a reform school. That was my first action. Of course, we killed them, but they were big guys. And I go out there, and I think I took 3 snaps and fumbled the snap on all 3 of them, picked the ball up, took off running. I ended up not starting until my junior year in high school. Valdosta High, man, if you can start 2 years, that's what you shot for. If you can start 1 year, it's great. If you can start 2, it's awesome. We had a lot of success. We ran the ball a lot. We threw it a little bit, but we ran a lot of dive options and stuff like that. We did throw it around a little bit. Hal Mummy was the head coach of Valdosta State at the time. And so a little bit of what he was doing, they started to incorporate some of the pass plays into our offense. And then he gets the Kentucky job. All the schools that are recruiting me are the military schools and a couple of small schools. I got a phone call and it was like, hey, we want to bring you up here. And that's how I got to Kentucky. When I got to Kentucky, I can remember going out there and throwing passes and stuff when we first got here. I threw a hitch route to Craig East, and my drops were terrible. My footwork and my mechanics just weren't there. And coming out of high school, if I threw a football and it was good, it felt good. If I threw a bad one, it felt bad. But I didn't really know why I made that mistake. I didn't have the consistent confidence in throwing that the ball was going where I wanted it to. I remember throwing a hitch route to Craig East early on. And it's a hitch route. I think it hit the ground halfway between me and him. He just went back to the line, go after the ball. He didn't even look at me. I'm going back over here. But man, we drilled and worked fundamentals of footwork. And I think sometimes when you're a less talented guy, you pay attention to the details more. And that's what I did. I probably threw the football more in 1 year at Kentucky than I'd ever thrown it in my entire life. I was behind Couch, and Couch was super talented. You don't get drafted first pick of the draft as a quarterback without having a lot of God-givens. He had them,
Right.
but he worked hard. And so if he was throwing, I was throwing, and he was throwing a lot. So that helped me tremendously. And he had a ton of confidence as well. And I think some of that rubbed off on me a little bit.
Everybody in middle school dreams about being the quarterback. What was it that you were doing at a young age that separated you from the other guys that thought that they could be the quarterback?
Man, it's totally different now. Pretty much every quarterback that's going into high school got somebody they're training with. They got a quarterback coach. They got all this kind of stuff. Back in those days, that existed. But shoot, my 8th grade year, there was another guy that started at quarterback over me. But the reality was he was a better quarterback than me. I'll tell you what I think helped me is quarterback's kind of the slot I got put into. I love football. I love it. And it was the thing that I wanted to do. So I was very committed. And with the school that I played at, it took a lot of commitment to play football. We worked out. We had off-season workouts in the mornings. I was very passionate. It mattered a lot to me. You compete against other people, but always internally in my head, I was competing against myself too.
When people think about the quarterback position, people think that's a very political position. I can't imagine what it looked like and what it still looks like at a school like Valdosta when you talk about booster clubs and everything that kind of goes into supporting a program. There's one-on-one training as well as quarterback camps. Some of these quarterback camps, invitation only. Some of them, it's about how much can you afford to pay to get to some of these camps.
Sure. Yeah.
What was that experience like at Valdosta? Was there a political element there for you? Did your parents help you navigate that?
So yeah, you're right. Everywhere you go, there's a political, right? It's different everywhere, but it's the same in that there's some kind of political something going on. There's always an undercurrent, whether that's family influence or whether that's outside pressure. There's always that. So to answer your question, like bluntly, as far as my parents, the answer is no. They did nothing to try to influence. My parents divorced. They were never standing at practice. They were never waiting to talk to coach. Shoot, a lot of times if I was getting picked up, I was the last one standing there because they had to work. There was none of that kind of stuff going on. There was the pressure from them, like to do my best and to go out there and do well. But I was on my own, man, which to be honest with you, I think is a gift that a lot of kids today don't get is there's so many people trying to orchestrate, manipulate their path, and it's let them figure it out and plow through it. They'll be better off for it regardless of where it stops. But I will say this, there was a lot of pressure at Valdosta High School. When you lost at Valdosta High School, you didn't talk on the bus ride home. The rest of the weekend was terrible. The rest of the next week was terrible. It was almost like you were grieving personal loss. And just a lot of pressure, man. But you're right. When you're in high school and you're the quarterback and you play well, everybody pats you on the back. When you play poorly, you hear what people are saying about you.
Yeah.
This group of people has this guy that they think they want him to be the guy, and he's not. You played poorly. It should be this guy. But I think I got booed one time at a pep rally. And you can tell a kid, hey, don't let that bother you. Shoot, don't let that bother you. You're human, and it does. But I loved it. But at the same time, I wish I could have enjoyed it more in the moment. But it was harder for me to enjoy it in the moment because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself for perfection, and it makes it hard to enjoy it in the moment.
You sit on the board for a private school in Lexington, Kentucky. In that role, did you get a chance to experience what that coach to parent interface looked like? What advice would you have for parents for how to navigate wanting the best for your kid,
Yeah.
but also being a good parent and having good relationship with the program?
I don't anymore, but I did, yes. This is something that I could really get tangled up in for a long time in this conversation. But just in my experience and watching things, I think there's advice all across the board. With my own kids, if you want to play something, I'll support you as much as I can. I'll do anything I can to support you, including I'll stay completely out of your way. Whatever it is you decide to do, it needs to be your thing, because that's the only way you're going to do what it takes. It needs to be yours. As a parent, I'm not going to take that away from you by making it mine. But I do think sometimes you go out to a youth sport deal and the coaches give the speech. Now, we're not talking to parents about playing time here. Like, dude, these kids are like 10. We've gone too far on both sides of this, where if it's a 10-year-old or if it's a young kid and they're not playing, like, if I were coaching, I got no problem with the parent coming and talking to me and saying, hey, what's going on? Why is so-and-so not playing or whatever? And we can talk through that.
There's so much at stake, though, when you talk about these scholarships and the price of tuition going up. It just seems parents are more invested and they want to be more hands-on than ever before.
This is truly how I feel. It's not your kid's responsibility to get a scholarship. I don't look at any of my kids and think, hey, you need to go get a scholarship. That's not their responsibility. That's not a kid's responsibility. If a kid decides, I play golf and I want to get a scholarship, totally fine. Support you every way I can. But your job in playing golf is to go out there, be the best teammate you can be, give it the best that you can, and enjoy it. And that's, Jeremy, that's what I tell people all the time. And I think a lot of guys that have the experience that I have and that you have, where you make it to college, let kids enjoy sports for sports. Let them enjoy it. Let them have a good time. If they don't enjoy it, they're not going to stick with it.
What's the fear that you have with parents who do push their kids to go and get a scholarship and they hit that point to maybe where they don't love the sport the way that they once had?
The burnout. I know you've seen it because I've seen it in college ranks. The guys that are there that don't enjoy being there, it's miserable. It's hard to be there and have to be there if you don't love it and don't want to be there. I told a friend of mine, we were talking about youth sports and stuff, and I said, if your kid would be the best player on whatever sports team they're on and they get a scholarship, but they hate it, you happy about that? My answer is, why don't I want my kids chasing a dream that's not theirs? I do believe that we have kind of lost our way a little bit in that sports. I really think that they should be having fun and they should enjoy it. One of the things I hate to see the most is parents that ruin it for the kid. And I hate seeing coaches that run sports for kids. I think on the youth levels, like any coaches that are coaching as a part of a middle school or anything that feeds into a school, if you're not playing everybody and developing everybody at those ages, you're cheating the program for the next 4 years, because that's how you win state championships. You build programs by developing everybody and developing their enjoyment for the game. That's what I believe. But sometimes I see kids that are phenomenal athletes, best players on the team, but you sit there and you watch them and you go, are they enjoying this because of the pressure they're getting from their families? And I've seen the kids that make a mistake and they turn and they look at their dad. Dad's not even field. That's in the stands. They make a mistake and they turn and look at their dad. And it's,
coach sees it, and other people that know what it looks like, they see it too.
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth all that, man. And I don't know what your experience has been, but my experience with most of the people that I've played with and know from playing, obviously they love sports, but they take the same approach of they need to pick their path and do their thing. Because at the end of the day, if I have to stand behind you and whip you to make you do what it takes, it ain't going to work out.
Talk about your high school coach. What was his leadership style? How did he motivate you and make you a better player?
I had to. The reason I had to was because my high school head coach was a guy named Nick Hodder, legendary in the state of Georgia, over 300 wins.
Wow.
Legendary coach. He had a heart attack and died in the spring after my junior year football season. He had a heart attack at school. And then my quarterback coach, a guy named Mike O'Brien, became the head coach. Both of them phenomenal men. And one thing that both of them did for me that helped me the most, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Those two men, they believed in me before I knew I could be that. I certainly didn't have the confidence, but they did. They would say things to me and my feet wouldn't touch the ground for the rest of the day. This started in middle school. Hey, man, we heard you got a chance to be good at this, whatever. Coach Hyder, strongest Christian man I've ever met in my life. He would talk to us, and you got to understand something. We'd had 120 guys on the football team. South Georgia Heat. For every practice, everywhere he went to school, he had his Bible with him. He constantly talked to us about Jesus and him loving us and dying for us. And when you're 16, 17, 18, and it's 100 degrees, you're like, man, but like the messages he taught us, I see people using that in their lives today and falling back on that. But he used to say things like, you never seen anybody under the rest being under the influence of green beans. You wouldn't put a candy bar in a sports car's gas tank. Why would you put it in your body? There were several things that he taught us. And Jesus loving us as our Lord and Savior was number one. And then he was famous for never quit. He beat that into us. And man, what a great lesson to learn in life is if you never quit, you'll always win eventually. And then when adversity hits, what do? You pour on more steam. He was one of those guys. I saw him in practice one time, and we had a phenomenal staff of football coaches and a big staff in South Georgia. One of the coaches was cussing and yelling and all this stuff. And he stopped practice in front of everybody. Coach, do you mean to tell me you can't coach these young men without using cuss words? That's the kind of guy he was. If y'all ever hear me say a cuss word, you are free to kick me as hard as you can in behind. I never, ever heard him say one. But I remember one day in practice, we ran a play, it didn't work. And he stood there and talked to me. And it was more or less like he was disappointed that I didn't make it work. And then they'd say, run it again. And man, I'd run through a brick wall for it. You know what I mean? I would put my head down and run into a brick wall for him. Same thing for Coach O'Brien. Did they push us hard? Absolutely. Were they hard on us? Absolutely. But what was different was, man, they truly did love us and they were really invested in us. They cared more about us as human beings than they did about sports. And I think a lot of coaches, they see coaches screaming and yelling. They're like, all right, that's what it takes to be a coach. And it's but you're missing the other part. Nick Saban got in some of these young dudes' faces in today's world, sort of screaming and yelling at them without them respecting him highly. They've been able to knock him out.
Yeah.
But he can do that because they know he loves them. He's got their best interest at heart and he'll make them better. And it's like they respect him. And it was the same thing. I can't tell you how much their belief in me mattered to me. If they hadn't have believed in me, I would have never had a chance to play college football, ever.
There's something special about mentors, teachers, these people who aren't related to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dad can say it 20,000 times. It don't count. You're right. You're right, man.
So when you hear these cliche sayings that it takes a village, the coaches and the story that you just told, I 1,000% endorse that. And I remember as I started hitting late middle school, early high school, I now know as a parent why my parents wanted to meet some of my buddies and their parents. These are going to be the people that you're spending time with. You're going to be over at their house and their principles and their values and their vigilance and what they're pumping into your kids as well. It matters.
I come from smaller towns, and that's how it is in smaller towns. You don't get away with anything. But to your point, my mom used to always say to me, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas. And I tell my kids all the time, if your friends aren't pulling you up, they're not your friends, cut the strings. And that was another thing in my life is my core of best friends in life were from growing up. We all played football together. And then there were some others that didn't play football. But in our group, if you were getting into some of the nonsense that some people get into, you were working yourself out of the group. The group was pulling everybody up versus pulling everybody down. Do as much as you can to pull people up. It helped me a ton, man. They believed in me before I did, that's for sure. And I had so much respect for them.
What does the term coachable mean to you? You
Well,
hear that? You hear it a lot. You hear it get thrown around.
One of my personal interests is horses, and I enjoy working with horses. And there's some horses that you work with, and it takes them a while to figure it out, but they figure it out and they try. They work an honest try. And then there's some, they don't want that honest try. And I think that's the difference of being coachable is like, you may tell me to do something and I may not figure it out, but I have a willingness and I'm going to try to do exactly what you told me to do the way you want me to do it. Because I always wanted to please my coaches. I always respected my coaches, and deservedly, I always wanted to please them and do what they asked me to do and do it how they did it. And I saw them as the authority. And I think being coachable, honest willingness to change and adapt to what the person's trying to get you to do. I think that's more than just you're the person in charge of me. I think it's, no, you're trying to help me, so I'm going to listen and do everything I can to do what you're telling me to do. I think that's being coachable.
I think it's legitimately trying to get better every single day, identifying what your learning style is,
Yep.
and using that learning style, getting to know yourself and how you learn, and
Yep.
trying to limit making the same mistakes continuously day after day. For me, one of the older guys that made an impact on me was Darrell White. And I'll never forget something he said that was so simple one day. I'm a redshirt freshman. He's a senior. And I'm watching him practice, and he's taking such pride with his three-point stance and trying to get his feet and his cleats right. And I asked him, like, Darrell, what are you doing, man? He's Jarmon. He goes, every day I have little things that I like to get better at. And he goes, a lot of times it's not something that happens after the ball snaps. He said, a lot of times it's pre-snap keys. A lot of times it's just identifying where I want to put my feet in certain situations. Hey, this is a 3rd and long situation. He said, trying to find the right stance. And he said, I literally try to get better at something every single day. And he goes, those little incremental things. And literally from that day on, as a redshirt freshman, that became my motto. I embraced that. That rubbed off on me. Today, I'm going to get better at something, whether it's hand placement, whether it's stance, whether it's shift, getting off a block, something. It's like compound interest. People tell you with your 401k, you just put a little bit in, and before you know it, 10 years, that thing's compounded. It's the exact same thing when you're
100%.
working your craft as an athlete.
I think that's a great story to describe coachable, because as you were saying that, I'm sitting there going, man, I'd love to coach a kid like that, a young man like that. And I think every coach in the world, if they heard that story, would be like, that's somebody I want to coach. But it's like you said, they want to get better. Listen, everybody wants to win championships. Everybody wants to get better. Everybody wants a scholarship. But you got to do what you got to do to get there. When the ball snaps, it's too late to learn the fundamentals. There would be much stuff going on to learn the fundamentals. When this happens and it goes full speed, I don't even have to think about my feet. They just do what they're supposed to do. Because if you have to think about it, you're too late. That's why when you come in as a freshman, regardless of how good you are, you're on the struggle bus for a little while.
Obviously, we're in a new era now with the NIL. You got guys that are leaving places, going to different schools because maybe the offer is higher.
Yeah.
Money was one of these factors that was influencing decisions of where guys were going to play. What are some scenarios, or what are situations where when a student athlete should seriously consider hitting the reset button and going to a different place, a different program?
For me, I had to do that here in Kentucky. If you get into a situation where you realize what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do, like your style of play is not that fit. If I go out to practice and the new coach shows up, we're running the triple option, it's time for Dusty to find somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
I will say it 2 different ways. So in one way, depends on what your dream is. A guy that comes to Kentucky and loves Kentucky and realizes by sophomore, junior year that probably never going to start and play here, but I just want to be here and get my degree. Totally cool. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're a guy that wants to play and you realize that there is no pathway for you to play, I think you got to think about going somewhere else, because what you want to do and what you're going to be able to do are 2 different things. That's certainly what happened to me. I was like, hey, I'm not going to get to play. So if I want to play, I got to go somewhere else. And that's what I did. Now, things are a little bit different now with the dynamics of money. I had the opportunity to come to school, and my freshman year, I was the backup, and I was the up back on the punt team. My second year, I redshirted, and then my 3rd year, I started. Particularly as a quarterback, if you're not in that starting quarterback conversation in your second year, that window keeps getting smaller and smaller. Like, you've got to prove yourself sooner. And I think that's all the way across the board with all the NIL and the transfers and everything. But it's interesting, and I certainly don't claim to be an expert on it, but some of the things you've heard about, like quarterbacks, hey, I'd rather go to a small school where I can start from day one versus a big school where I can hopefully be the starter in 2 to 3 years, because if I go to the small school, then I get more money when I transfer. It's interesting stuff. But I also think the world's different, man. When I came to college, in my mind, it's like, I have to get myself in a position to play. And if I can start for a year, that's great. If I can start for 2 years, that's really great. And I ended up starting 3 years of college football. But nowadays, I think kids come out and they're like, I want to play now. If I can't play now, I'm going to go somewhere else so I can play now. And I don't necessarily think that's the best idea of I'm going to go somewhere, but if it doesn't go my way immediately, like I think the adversity and working through adversity is good. But I also think that, hey, if I'm a quarterback and there's only one football, there's only one quarterback on the field, and I got guys ahead of me that are my age and younger, and there's no window. Football is one of those sports where it's kind of hard to hide it. I think you can kind of see it. And I'll tell you a story. When I came to Kentucky from South Georgia, nobody knew who Tim Couch was where I was from. And so people were like, hey, man, go up there and beat that guy out. So I went, I don't go around. I was what I'm going to do. And to myself, I said that. And we started working out. The first ball I saw him throw, like a one-on-one receiver, he threw a fade route. And when he threw it, the guy calling it scored. In my mind, I said to myself, I'm going to be the backup. And that was my new goal and I think that's one thing about football is you can look around and look at the guys in front of you, and you have a really good idea. 9 times out of 10, don't get me wrong, have there ever been guys that coach didn't like them, so that's why they didn't get their chance? Sure. But for the most part, it's pretty obvious to you and everybody else where you stand.
We've all been in that situation at some point. What does it look like to be a good teammate? We hear people talk about competition. We hear people talk about being a good teammate, but we're also competitors.
Yeah.
We want to be the starter. What does that look like at the highest level?
And so I think it takes a couple different shapes, and I'll just use my actual scenarios to play it out. So Couch was the clear starter when I got here, deservedly. I prepared, my coach told me to prepare every single day like you're the starter, whether you're first team or fifth team. If you're the scout team quarterback, you prepare like you're starting the game that week. And that's what I did. And I was always fully engaged. And that was a tremendous help for me. But I knew Couch was a quarterback. And so I tried to get as much information from him as I could, both watching him and talking to him and throwing with him, and asking him questions. If I saw something I thought could help him, I tried to tell him that. Now, he has the right to say, I ain't listening to that or whatever. But I would try to tell him, hey, this, or what if we check this, or this guy's doing this. And then there's off the field stuff too, being a good teammate too, like pushing each other in the weight room and holding each other accountable and keeping people out of bad situations. When Couch left, it was a 3-way competition between myself and 2 other guys. And I liked both the other guys. One of the guys I was probably better friends with than the other. But man, it was super competitive. And all these people, man, I'm just going to tell you straight up. When you hear these stories on TV, oh, these so-and-so took so-and-so's job, but they're best friends and he's the happiest guy for him. I'm like, there's a bunch of baloney. I'm out on that. I don't believe it because you are competitors, man. And I can remember there was a guy here in Kentucky named Chase Hark who was a super competitor. He and I one day, we were forehead to forehead in the indoor, like going back and forth, pushing each other, like arguing over whose turn it was to take the rep. And were we friends and did we like each other? Absolutely. But man, it was a competition. Sometimes when the dust settles, it just is what it is. It's not my personality to be like, okay, you won and you beat me out, so now I'm going to go over here and be sour grape and try to cause problems. That's not it. But I also think that it's okay to be a competitor and to be disappointed if you don't get it.
Yeah.
And honestly, if we're all running around going, hey, that's wonderful, you got my job, I'm not getting the right people in here.
You mentioned how the intent is to go out and practice every day as if you're the starter. And that's great for you from an individualistic perspective, but that's important also from the team dynamic. And I can't tell you time and time again, when a guy goes down, how excited sometimes you see guys get when they see one of the other guys, maybe who's been working hard and he's got a chance now. It's easier for those kind of guys to have the team rally around them if they've seen you putting this work in on a day in, day out basis, when your number's going to get called. Not if, but when it comes time.
When you step into a college locker room, man, all the baloney, it all gets stripped away real fast. There is no fraud in the locker room. Everyone knows if you're a fraud, whether you're a coach or a player, it don't take long. For the most part, almost everybody in that locker room, the purpose is bigger than just themselves. And to your point, the team knows who works hard, but the team knows who deserves it and who doesn't. The team knows that you may be one of our best players, which
I
ain't
trust you.
super talented, but boy, if he'd work hard, look where he could be.
That's such a bad situation to be in. And that's one of the things for me that always drives me crazy, Dusty, is when you see some of these highly rated, these heralded guys. And then when you look at the report coming out of high school, why wasn't this guy a team captain? If he was this great player, why does he lack leadership skills?
100%. Sometimes guys are in positions or places where maybe his strength's not as developed as it should be because they don't have a good strength program. That's one thing. But me personally, I always told people, hey, God gave me enough ability to have a chance if I work really hard. And I have seen people that had more natural ability and they just coasted with it because they could. And that drives me crazy. If I'm 6'7" and I can run like a deer and I got 3% body fat and weigh 290 pounds, Dusty's going to play in the NFL for as long as he wants to. That's a bold statement. But it's just, man, I think sometimes, and again, like we talked about how much it means. And listen, a lot of the motivating factors are different for a lot of different people depending on their situation, their scenario, but it means a lot, and maybe for different reasons. It's just hard to take when it means that much to you and it matters. And you see somebody like it just doesn't matter to you. And if it did, you'd be so much better than everybody else. Wake up, man.
I'm a nurse by trade. I've worked at the bedside, Dusty, for almost 8 years now. And recently went to San Antonio for a nurse leadership conference with some of our hospital executives and some other nurse leaders. And one of the keynote speakers at the conference made the comment that in any given hospital, only 9 to 11% of the staff even want or would consider stepping into some of the leadership or management positions. From a football perspective, would you think that those numbers are comparable across the board in a lot of sports that only maybe 10% of the team really want to do what needs to be done to be a team captain?
Yes, I do. I think when you're a captain, I think you're always on. You never get to turn it off and go, okay, now I'm going back over here and I'm going to do me and do whatever I want to do. If you're going to be a team captain, you don't have to be the fastest, strongest, but you doggone better sure be one of the hardest working, first one there, last one to leave. When I was in school, we did these things in the off season where we had teams. They put an offensive guy and a defensive guy, and you do all these competitive events, but they'd be like push a van around the track, just brutal physically, right? Sometimes your team would be short a player or two against the other team. So somebody on your team had to go twice. And this one day, it's like this big, long relay, and you're like jumping over hay bales and running this long thing and physical stuff. And I was one of the captains on that team. And it's all right, we got to have a couple of us go twice. I'm going twice because I didn't feel like I had a choice. I can't tell one of the other guys, you're going twice. I have to because I'm one of the captains on this deal. It's not a choice. And I've heard Nick Saban talk about choices and say, if you want to be great, you really don't have that many choices. You get to make a choice and then you lose all the other choices because it takes what it takes. You don't have a choice of what the expectations are. And you're right. I don't think a ton of people really want to be up there and do that and be in that position.
Why is that? Is that innate? Are some people predisposed, able to embrace wanting to be a leader, and it's easier for them? Or can someone be grafted into becoming a leader?
So you get into some good stuff. I think there are some people that just naturally have some gift in that area and are just willing to do things that other people don't want to do. I do think there's certainly people that are built like that. I didn't even play with them and I don't even know them personally, but Wesley Woodyard, Randall Cobb, like those are guys that if I had to bet, nobody
they showed up like that.
Nobody outworked them. They probably didn't come in here running their mouth day one, but they probably came in here and earned the right to run their mouth day one. And that's the other thing too about a locker room is you ain't going to get it done with your mouth because nobody cares about that. You better show up and do it. Do I think it can be developed? Absolutely. I think people change. And I think part of that is that people don't like to get outside their comfort zones. And so when you ask them to lead or when you ask them to be a leader, they're like, wait a minute, I can't ask you to be a leader of my team when you run sprints, that last 5 yards, you're shutting it down. Or when you're running around the outside of the field, you always cut that corner. Like, you can't do that kind of stuff. I just think there's a lot of people are like, I'm good over here in my lane because I don't want to be held to that standard. So that's what I'm going to give. It's such a shame, but it's the same thing in the leadership roles because it's kind of like a fear thing. I don't want to get out there and lead because then all eyes are going to be looking at me.
I think the scariest thing is that once you show that you can step into a leadership role, that you can play quarterback in the SEC, that you can get sacks in the SEC, your coaches, your teammates, and the fan base, they expect it and demand it forever.
It goes back to what the guy told you where he was trying to get better at something every day. I had a coach who used to say, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And it's the truth. One of the great things about football, because you can go out there and lose a game, get embarrassed, and you got to flush it and move on to the next week. You can go through everything that you do in football. And this is true of our lives. We're getting a little longer in the tooth now, but it's true of our lives too. You can go through everything in the routine of it. You can show up at practice. You can do practice every day of the week in a routine type way, in a check the box. I did practice. I did what I was supposed to do. Or you can say, every second that I was on that field for practice, everything I did, I tried to do it better than the day I did it before. The strengths I tried to do better, the weaknesses I tried to do better. I tried to improve on every single thing I did. And that's that compounded interest.
Podcast is powered by the Kentucky K Club. Send us your questions and follow the journey on social media. Our handles across all platforms is @LetterWinnerPod. Thanks for your support. See you next week.